once again, and welcome to another edition of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast presented by DreamCricket. I'm your host, Peter Delapenna, and on this edition of the podcast, we welcome the head coach of Nepal, also the former head coach of Canada and the USA, Pubudu Dassanayake, ahead of Nepal's participation in the first half of the T20 World Cup Qualifier, which is going to get underway February 18th in Oman. Nepal is one of 8 teams competing in that event, and Pubudu was very kind and gracious enough to give us a significant amount of time to talk about his experiences in Nepal, but also thematically for this podcast in the USA, where he spent 2016 through 2019 as the head coach of USA. And we talk about some other parts of his life journey into cricket, starting in Sri Lanka, where he was a test cricketer in the early 90s, before migrating to Canada, where he became a dual international, representing Canada in international cricket as well. And then that's where he got his start as a head coach as well in the associate world. So we've got a lot to cover in this edition of the podcast. But first, I want to thank the newest subscriber to the podcast on Patreon, Liz Lynch. Liz, thank you so much for becoming a supporter of the podcast, and I appreciate everybody else who has signed up to make the podcast happen on an episode-by-episode basis. If you have not joined already, do like Lynch did and sign up on Patreon. There are all sorts of membership levels you can contribute to help make the podcast keep being produced on a regular basis, and I appreciate everybody who has done that so far, especially Liz Lynch, being the newest Patreon for the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast. I also want to thank the title sponsors of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, DreamCricket and Moosa Cricket Stadium, the first and original turf wicket facility in the state of Texas. For more information, call 713-534-2195. It's Moosa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. And one more note for this edition of the podcast: Zoom is not idiot-proof. I seem to have forgotten to check off a few of the user preferences on Zoom, so some of you may be happy, if you're watching on the YouTube version of the podcast, that I will not be seen anywhere. I forgot to click the portion where it shows both myself and the guests in the video screen. So for this entire episode, you will see nothing but Pubudu Dassanayake on screen, which I'm sure for many Nepal fans out there, you will much rather have that than seeing me on screen for any portion of time. But anyway, that's the reason why that has happened. Enjoy. Today's edition of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, we have a special touring edition of the podcast in Oman, where we're joined by Nepal head coach Pubudu Dassanayake, just ahead of the start of the T20 World Cup qualifiers in Oman begins on February 18th. Pubudu, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
So you're back with Nepal, which is music to the ears of many, many Nepalese fans and associate cricket fans, just to have you back on the scene after spending some time away from the coaching scene upon leaving USA. But you're back now. You've been back for a few months, your first tour, now back in your second stint with the Nepal team. Tell us what the initial experiences have been coming back to a place and a team where you're so beloved.
There's a lot of differences from the last time I was here. Of course, 2011 to 15, the time that I was with them, I really enjoyed, and there was different challenges when you're coming from Division 4 to the Division 1. Now it's totally different. The few years that I wasn't there, I thought when I went back in December, it was quite different. I mean, it's a player's point of view, and the whole setup is different. So my challenges are different from the past for sure. And the positive side is, like, as usual, enough talent, enough good playing group to bring this forward. So that's my positive side of it. So I'm always happy to take my positive side and move forward.
I'll tell you what else is different: the gray hairs that are growing on your beard.
That was about to happen anyway, because it's just that when you work for this long for it associate cricket, I would have expected more gray hair.
Yeah, you've been on the scene for quite some time, and now, as you said, the challenge is very different compared to the first time around in Nepal. As you said, taking them from Division 4 up to Division 1. This time around, they're already in the elite tier of associate cricket as part of the Cricket World Cup League 2 competition. And your first task comes even before playing the ODIs that have already been underway in that competition with Nepal T20 World Cup qualifier. And you come at a time where there's been a whole lot of changes and a whole lot of things happening on and off the field in Nepal. Right before you arrived, the transition to a new captain, there was a whole lot of controversy really right before you arrived, with Gyanendra being stripped of the captaincy, and then some of the players threatening to not play. Before you arrived, Sandy Blemachani is appointed as captain. So you walked straight into a baptism by fire of sorts in your second stint. But these are things not entirely foreign to Nepal cricket for people who've been following Nepal over the years. So just the atmosphere that you walked into, what has it been like for you to try and get everybody back on the same page after all the events that unfolded right when you were about to enter the job for the second time?
For me, it's pretty simple, and how I worked, and then how I want things to be done. Just just want to bring everything like a transparent and honest system. Whatever we do, I think that have helped my whatever the success that I had in the past in all three countries that I handle transparency and honesty. I think I put that the top 2-3 things that if I want to do it to bring some changes into Nepal cricket. Say there's so much of positive things when I left, I had lots of issue with the Cricket Association, but now I think after the suspension Nepal Cricket Association has organized pretty well, and there is a cricket manager, there is a general manager in place, and so the things have been pretty settled there from the administration point of view, but I just want to be the bridge between the players and the association and the administration. I don't think that nothing has gone really wrong. It's just that lots of misunderstandings, I would say, and it's not that hard to bring things together. But overall, I did a lot of work with the players to understand the bigger picture of how the playing, what are the responsibilities of the playing group, and then how we had to react to the things around us. So we did a lot of workshops. I'm sure I'm not expecting everybody to be in line right away, but I think the majority, other understands, and then once we start doing well on the field, I'm sure all these other little things around it also will settle down, and I think we will have a very strong side moving forward. There's a lot of cricket coming, as you know. There's so many cricket fans, like Nepali fans, follows this, and they really have a passion for the Nepali cricket. So we as a team, we actually owe them to perform the best on the field. So once we start understanding the whole the structure and the responsibilities, I'm confident that we can bring the whole thing into the right path, and then and build that into a different level.
One other question about recent events before moving on to some other topics, and we'll talk about the T20 World Cup qualifier a bit more later on. But I guess the last question in terms of right now, your performance in the quad series, your first series back in charge, you start off with the win against Oman, and then you lose to the UAE in a very tight loss as well to Ireland, but very competitive performances, you would argue, in all three games. Besides Dipendra Singh Airy's performance, which was outstanding throughout the series with both bat and ball and in the field, what else stood out to you about some of the newer faces that have emerged to take on leadership roles, whether in name or just by performing with bat and ball, that has impressed you the most since your first time in charge?
The most satisfaction for me was how the bowling group came up. I mean, if you have seen they are not like the old the players who have used to be like current cases Sompal, who are basically running the fast bowlers department for the last few years, and we don't have both of them in here. And the three seamers who actually really stepped up, and I think they are ready to go in this tournament, and they will trouble any batting unit the way that they are bowling. And of course, we have Sandeep as a top spinner, and then few part timers like Dipendra, and them, like they're actually I can't put them as a part timers. They're Dipendra, whatever you given to him, he is just taking it and performing at the best. So the best, like if you ask me, the most satisfied thing that I've seen in these last 3-4 days was my bowling unit. It has really come up, and the batting, when it comes to the batting also, like we were short of like 2 games we were short of 20 runs, around 20 runs margin. I'm not that worried about it because there's so much of talent in this group. It's just that we need to learn to finish the games. We need to learn to have good starts and how to control the middle, and then finish a game. I think we were exposed to the maximum, and which I really wanted to happen. If you would have won, I mean, of course, I would have loved to win, but once you lose, also you actually leave a lot of pressure into the batting unit that yeah, we need to step up a bit more. So I would like to actually, personally, if you ask me, I really like where we are in where we are in at the moment, because the pressure is on, capability is there. We just need to do a bit better when the tournament hits.
I want to go back a little bit to just your start getting into cricket in Sri Lanka, growing up in Sri Lanka, your role models, how you got into the game. Take us through how it all began for you growing up as a kid there.
I studied in one of the top schools in Colombo, and I'm fortunate, like without knowing, because of my brother, I got into cricket when I was 9 years old, and from that age, I'm just focused on cricket more than anything else. Um, and when I was around the 16, 17, I had a real dream that I really wanted to play for the country. I may not the most talented player even at my school, but because of the passion that I had, I really forced things to me, and until I achieved that. So that's how I was able to play for Sri Lanka. And the other thing, I'm very blessed. Like I'm blessed to the one era that Sri Lanka is in Sri Lankan. I got involved in Sri Lankan cricket when in late 80s, where Sri Lanka had a top team, but we were not compared to the other teams in the world. We were losing every game. We were competitive, but we were losing games. And so the early 90s, the Sri Lankan whole transition happened, and start believing that in the international arena we can beat teams. We are also good in that level. And then the 96, after the 96 winning the 96 World Cup, and from there onwards, like we got the belief of becoming a top team. So whole that time period, I was part of it, and I'm blessed for that, because I think even for my coaching, that has a big effect, because of I was seen the lowest, I have seen the highest in Sri Lankan cricket. So that actually I have enough examples to give even in associate cricket, when I talk things to motivate things, and show some parts to some of the players. So yeah, I'm blessed with my cricketing career that I had in Sri Lanka.
You mentioned the schools, playing cricket in schools. Schools cricket is a big thing in Sri Lanka. What school did you go to?
I went to DS Senanayake College, and there are a lot of cricketers been born from that school. Aravinda De Silva, Ashanti Tilakaratne, myself, Navid Nawaz. There's a lot of, about 6-7 players who have represented the country. Yeah, this is one of the top schools in Sri Lanka.
And did you have anybody else in your family who was a cricketer? I mean, where it was your dad or anybody else, any other relatives, or was this something that just you and your brother took up because of the growing emergence of cricket's popularity in the country in general?
Yeah, my father has played a bit of cricket, and then I think that's because of that my brother got involved. He also didn't continue after, I think, under 15. I don't think he played after that. But I got into his cricket because of him, and then I just continued.
And this is a time frame, like you said, late 80s, where they had just moved from associate to test status. But as you said, Sri Lanka at the time was losing most matches. The fact that they won the 96 World Cup, I think for people nowadays, it's hard to put into context how shocking it was, the result, because it really came out of nowhere. So in that time frame, playing for the Sri Lanka team in that kind of early 90s era where there was a lot of adversity to deal with on the field and off the field, because things were starting to deteriorate in the country in terms of the stability and the security situation there. What, in your eyes, was the biggest example of adversity that you felt you had to overcome, whether as a player or on a personal level?
I mean, the when you talk about the national team, there was so much of talent was there, and I'm, like I said, I'm blessed to be part of that whole group. We were like, slowly building up, and then, by 96, if you take, to the top order of the national team, everybody has played around 150 ODIs, and even the bowling unit was a bit younger, but it's still like, we had a, set bowling attack. But for us to come in that period, like, we had a lot of challenges, like the country situation, there are many tours being cancelled because of the war that we had in the country. It was very challenging, and sometimes, like, we don't know sometimes, like, which way the things were going in some time periods. But cricket was one of the things that the whole country was admired and following. So that's like also, like, we were actually motivated, like, to play this game hard in that time period. But it was challenging at one time with the country situation.
You made your debut, your international debut was your test debut. You played tests before you played ODIs for Sri Lanka. In total, you played 11 tests, 16 ODIs for in international cricket, starting with Sri Lanka. And that debut came August 25th, 1993, the first test against South Africa. And that was at Morutala. You were under the captaincy of Arjuna Ranatunga, and you batted at 8. You were the starting wicketkeeper in that match. What do you remember most about your international debut?
Like, that was a dream come true for me. I mean, I was, even though I played my first test in 93, I was in the squad from around the 1989, 4 years. Like, we had 4 wicket keepers in 30-man squad. Like, for 4 years we were training. All the other three actually got opportunities before me. Gamini Vikramasinghe, Ashley De Silva, current CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket, and then, of course, Romesh Kalvitarna. 4 of us, we were training hard, and of course Hashan Tilakaratne also was there. He also kept many games at that time, and I was just working hard and just hoping one day I'll get my opportunity. But everybody got the breaks before me, and even just before that 93 World Cup, sorry, 93, my first debut, Ramesh Kalvitar got his break to come into the test team, and actually he scored 100 in the debut. So many said that I will never make it to the team because he's just 1 year older to me, and he is going to play for a longer period. But I don't want to believe that, because I worked too hard to be in that place, and I just continued to work hard. Scored a lot of runs in the domestic cricket, and kept well to, find a place. And then, the day came when South Africa came in, and they first selected me to play the 3-day side game, warm-up game, and in goal. And in that game, I got 6 victims behind the stumps. So that may be the thing that selectors thought to bring me into the test squad, and got the opportunity to play. And of course, that I will never forget that day for any cricketer getting your debut. Playing your debut is a memorable day. And that test was we were about to win as well. It would have been nice with a win, but on the 5th day, John Road scored 100 and avoided our win. It went to a draw. But it was fantastic memories, and fantastic time.
What gave you the most pleasure throughout the day? Just getting your debut cap, having a debut cap handed to you, scoring your first runs over the course of the match, or later in the match, came a few days later, getting your first dismissal in Test cricket?
I actually, I was the specialized wicketkeeper those days. In Test cricket, they don't, not that they don't worry, but mainly the keeping comes first, for the Test wicketkeeper. And my first catch was my memorable. I think that in that Test match, Andrew Hudson caught down the leg side of Chandika Hatrusingha. That was my first catch, and that's I had a great feeling.
Take us through that. You said down the leg side. So did you have to dive for it? Was your footwork good enough that you just took it standing up, shuffling side to side? How did it happen?
No, I just had to shuffle side to side. It's just a very small nick. And Chandika Hatrusingha also not the quickest. He's just a medium pace bowler, and didn't have to work hard to take that catch. It just that nicely moved to the smooth sideways, and caught it.
One of the other things that stands out about you mentioning you were picked as a specialist wicketkeeper more so than for your batting is the fact that you're coming into the team and you have to keep to Merlin in your debut test. Now, you said you had been in and around the squad, so I'm assuming you would have kept to him in the nets to build up some familiarity with him. And I'm not sure if you would have kept for him any other place before making your test debut. But what was it like for you trying to keep wicket to Merlin?
Morally and I go a long way. We have played against each other in school cricket as well. He's 1 year younger to me actually, and then Murali also one of the guys who was in that national squad from around 89, and both we were school cricketers, and so we had a good bond, and played a lot of cricket, and even the Sri Lankan provincial system, we played in the same team. I'm from Central District and Central Province, and Murali also from Central Province, so we played together. Saw him from the younger days growing, and so never had any issues of picking his hands behind the wickets.
You got 3 stumpings off of him, and then actually the next test match you played against South Africa, that was at the SSC in Colombo. So if you say you don't have any trouble, what is the key that was so easy for you that made it so hard for so many other international teams that came up against him?
To be honest, Murali was not bowled in the Dushra at that time. He was basically started developing slowly, and I think he came late 90s only that he started bowling the Dushra in international cricket. But the test matches that I kept against him, he was turning one way off spin, and even though he was turning square, but he just one way turn. So I didn't have much of any issues, and it's just that off the pitch he's very nippy. Means he quick. The ball travels hard. Even though we see him as a spinner, flight in the ball, the ball off the pitch balls comes through harder. So it's just that you have to watch and get into the line. Yeah, never had any issues with with him, and I basically enjoyed. I mean, the all the test matches that I played, morally basically bowling, 50 plus overs. I mean, the fast in test matches we always like fast bowlers in 8-10 overs they're done, and then the spin attack starts, and Murali from one end to the end of the innings is bowling. So got used to him so much.
You said you were teammates with him. You knew him through schools cricket and district cricket. You've always come across to me as a pretty mild-mannered, pretty quiet guy who, aside from the cricket, just likes to live a pretty relaxed life. Merlin, we've heard many stories that he just loves and talks cricket nonstop. Cricket, 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 never shuts about cricket. He's the last guy. If you're looking to have a nap on the bus, you don't want to be sitting next to him because he just is going to chew your ear off talking about cricket. What was it like for you off the field with Merlin?
Yeah, it's a great character for sure. I mean, we had great times, especially when we were playing together in the central province. To those tournaments, like we go into the especially the games happen in Kandy, and he used to invite us into his home. He had some great parents, like they were very welcoming whoever comes to their place. Yeah, I think that his character is where he always he's his ears are out always, and so much focus, whatever he does. So I think that makes he that's actually contributes for his performance.
You talked about being in and around the squad for several years before you eventually got your debut. And then you played your last match December 94, but you were still floating around the squad and potentially had a chance to be part of the World Cup squad in 96, but you didn't make the cut. And of course, they go on to win the World Cup in 96. Take us through that part. I think this is something that I've found fascinating, talking to various athletes inside and outside cricket over the years, handling the little bit rejection and how it impacts their future career, and or just looking into other things inside and outside cricket. And especially you find it makes better coaches in some ways, because for a player like Gavaskar or a Holding or even a Tendulkar or Warren, where everything comes easy, they're the best they've ever done. It's very hard for those guys to kind of relate to players who have had to deal with rejection and had to deal with setbacks that those guys just never experienced, and they don't have any concept to relate to. So from your standpoint, just take us through that experience. What was it like being told you were not part of the World Cup squad, and also seeing the team win the World Cup? I would imagine for some people, there's a dueling kind of mindset of like, oh, I want my country to win, but God, this sucks that I can't be a part of it. I wish I was there. So first, being told you weren't part of the World Cup, and then the whole journey of watching the World Cup, knowing that you wanted to be there and be able to experience it and contribute, but being unable to do that. What was that whole time frame like for you?
That's a tough experience that any cricketer going through, especially when you get dropped from the side. And like I said at the beginning, I always work very hard. I was not the most talented, but I can say that I was the number one wicket keeper that time. But with the batting, when it comes to batting, I actually neglected the batting side because my focus was too much on the keeping. And the funny part is the things that I know now as a coach. If I knew uh, half of these things that when I was playing, I'm definitely it would have helped me to play more years for the country. But again, especially when you come in South Asian countries where cricket crazy, everybody follows everything that we do. Even if you miss a catch on one day in a big game, you meet 100 people and they ask the same question: how did that happen? and you cannot get frustrated. You have to answer those 100 people same way. I mean, for somebody you will hear from one time from me, but I have to repeat for more than 100 people. So it was not easy. It was not easy set up. But I think every cricketer, every international cricketer in some part of your life has to go through that, because no one is going to unless if you are super talented and you are consistently playing at the highest level. You have to go through these things, as you said, like when it comes to the coaching also, it really helped me to understand every player's mentality, and what you need to do if you're average player, what you need to do if you're a high talented player, and how those mentalities work, how their thinking works. I as a cricketer I went through, and even though I was not thinking of coaching after cricket at that time, when I look back now, there's so much of things that I went through, and it really helped me to be who I am right now. So yeah, it's a challenging world. I think if you are a cricketer, I think I mean it's I don't think that we have to get emotional about it, but it's part of your career for any cricketer.
The 96 World Cup experience for you, though, being somebody who was around the squad, not being able to be part of the squad, though, how did you process that experience as it was happening in the time?
I was not surprised that I was in the 30 squad, but I was not surprised that I wasn't in that squad, because Kalwitan always was in front of me for the shorter version, and I was in front of him for the longer version. But I tried my best to be in that camp. I mean, it's like the in the squad. But yeah, they had only one wicket keeper. But as a player, as a human, you want to be there, and that heat always going to be there when you watch games. And like sometimes when you just miss it, it's very hard to take. But whatever said and that, we all enjoyed the winning the World Cup, and the transition that happened after the World Cup, money coming into the country. I mean, the Sri Lanka Cricket Board, and the payments structures went high. Uh, got more facilities, got better coaches coming in. So all these things I witnessed being a part of that whole setup. So even though as a player that I would really like to be part of playing group, I don't regret to be in the looking. I mean, staying very close to that system, and experiencing it.
What was the biggest thing that you benefited from in terms of whether it was the greater professionalization of cricket after the World Cup, or just financial rewards, anything else, infrastructure improvements? What was the number one thing that you felt you personally benefited from as a result of the national team setup as a whole following that 96 World Cup win?
I think the cricket fans respect went really, from 50 to 100 with no time winning that World Cup. We were all respected, even though we were not playing. We were not in the playing group. The people who are around that team was well respected around the system, and the Sri Lanka cricketing system totally changed from there, where the mercantile, where the banks and all these main organizations, they start hiring cricketers, and even you don't have to be a national player. There was If you are a good school cricketer, even up to today, the jobs are guaranteed. You as soon as you get out from the school, you get a job playing cricket, basically, even though you work you work in a company. So there's many companies came through, and the public and the private organizations really helped to grow cricket in Sri Lanka. And then the other facilities, like, I mean, we didn't have a, like, before 96, I would say, we didn't have proper physios, proper trainers, and all those systems came into place with the money that came in. So it's a huge transition for Sri Lankan cricket at that time, and then still it continues from there. So yeah, I'm very glad to be part of that transition period.
The closest you came to getting one more chance at international cricket would have been right around 1998. You played for Sri Lanka A against an England A touring squad. Mahela Jayawardene was in that Sri Lanka A team. Russell Arnold was in that Sri Lanka A team. And then on the other side, it was captained by Nick Knight, Andrew Flintoff, Always Shah, Ashley Giles were all in that England A team. At what point did you feel like that window was beginning to close on a possible recall? Was it then, or was it some other point in time where you felt like you had one more shot?
No, I thought that after that England A team it was a full packed team, Holyoke brothers and Nick Knight, a full pack, top England A team. Visited Sri Lanka, and so I got the opportunity to play the test match, and I had to play like a match saving innings on the second innings. So I got a 50 in the second innings to save the, like, a follow on and set up a target in the second innings, even though we lost the game because we actually made a declaration to make the things interesting on the fourth day, and the England got the score. But I batted well in that game, and kept well. And then even the three ODIs that we had against England A, I was actually scored runs, and I was able to win one game also. I mean, chasing at some runs at the end. So Sri Lanka team about to tour South Africa in 2-3 months after that tour. So I came so close, and of course, Kalwitana was the number one choice, and there was a discussion about taking 2 wicket keepers on that long tour, but for some reason, last minute they changed, and they came up with saying, the selectors came up saying that it's just one wicket keeper they're taking on that tour. So I missed that tour. I thought if I had opportunity to break in at that time, I would have still play few more matches for the country. But then I continued to play first class cricket I didn't, not that I gave up playing, but that was actually the closest I came to get back.
Kept playing for a couple more years, and then after Cal with Rana, Kumar Sangakkara emerges on the scene, and everybody knows the career he had. Being content with reconciling the fact that you're going to be a first-class cricketer for the rest of your career, no matter how hard you try to break back into international cricket. What is that like, just mentally, and how do you wrap your head around that this is your fate, you're going to be a first-class cricketer, and how much of that factored into your decision to eventually migrate to Canada?
In the Sri Lankan system at that time, when you hit your 30s, like all these top cricketers at that time period retired, and we treated like, if you hit 30, like, you're kind of old for the country. And some of these top players like Roshan Manam, Arjun Rantunga, they all, like, retired early 30s, and some of the guys like Sanat Jayasuriya and them, like, who played until the late 30s, that happened after that. So I was around 30. I knew that it's not easy for me to get back to the national team. So, but I continued to play cricket, and at the same time, I started coaching. I started actually coaching for my own school, the first 11 under 19 team. 1 year I was coaching them, and then never planned to come out of the country. But then I got an offer from Centurions Cricket Club in Toronto to come and play a season. At that year, actually, I was actually looking to play some club cricket in England, but for a wicketkeeper batsman, it's not easy to get into club cricket in England because they're always looking for all-rounders who can bowl and bat both. So I was disqualified there. Then I got this opportunity to play in Toronto, and I thought, why not? I just going to play a season and see how things goes there. So I retired in 2001, first class cricket, and then came to Canada not to stay, just to play and go back. But then after that, different things happened.
Centurions, for people who don't know, Centurions is a heavily Sri Lankan influenced club. Most of the ethnic Sri Lankan players who are in Canada are tied to Centurions. So the fact that there was this Sri Lankan community, the Sri Lankan diaspora in that part of Toronto, when you got there, were you surprised to see how thriving it was? And to what extent did then, after you got there and seeing how much support system you would have if you wanted to stay, how much did that influence your decision for you not just to stay, but to convince your wife and everybody else in your family to come?
Yeah, like so once I got into the first season, I was actually surprised the standard that they had, in that Toronto district tournament, where all the clubs are very competitive, and more than competitive, I found that the conditions are challenging to you to perform. Sometimes most of these grounds are a bit heavy grass. You cannot play proper cricket shots to score runs, so you had to find different ways to score runs. And every team had one or two former players from either Caribbean or from Australia or South Africa, and then the teams are so passionate to win that tournament, and it's a 6 months long tournament. So it's kind of a new experience to me, and that year, and Centurions became the champions, and yeah, I enjoyed every bit of it, and especially the club members who have supported me, and at the same time, the personal challenge that I had, because I came as a test player, international player, so there was a lot of pressure for me to perform as well. So it's a combination of things there, and I think it helped me to go into a different direction.
You talked about all the cricket things there, but in terms of off-field considerations, not just what was happening in Sri Lanka and the deteriorating situation with the war in the country, but also just for some people, it can be hard, even though war is happening. Hey, it's still home. This is my home. I'm not leaving home. When you get to Toronto, and specifically with the club, and you get a sense that, hey, you're not just going to be the only Sri Lankan in a very big country, and there's all these other people there to support you, aside from the competitive cricket aspects that you would be able to maintain. How much of an impact did all the off-field support systems in Canada help influence your decision to migrate to Canada permanently?
Yeah, I'm very again, like, glad and blessed to be part of Centurions, because that it has a family environment where if you are a Centurions, like, basically you are a lifetime Centurions, because there's a huge community is involved, and whether it's a job or whether it's any other help or whether anything you name it, there's somebody is there to help you. And so one of a few of the friends that I made in that club, I didn't even have in Sri Lanka that much of close friends and people who have helped me in that time period. And especially when we're coming alone and staying 6 months, I didn't have that experience before. I've never been out of Sri Lanka, except for with the national team. So coming in, staying that 6 months, and like, I never felt that I'm outside the house. They were very, very well taken care of me, and in every aspect. And then my wife and kid also. I had one kid at that time, and they also visited during that 6 months, and I was able to see the Canada around. And actually they are the one, my wife is the one that made the call saying that I think this is the place that we want to be, and because of the kids future and her future and everything. So basically my career was almost cricketing career was almost done in Sri Lanka. So it was a good choice to make at that time.
Your wife was very supportive, not just supportive, but sounds like she's the one who actually wanted to come, maybe even more than you did, to Canada. You wind up staying in Canada, and you say you thought your cricket career was basically done in Sri Lanka, and yet you come to Canada and you have a second life in your career. It wasn't just playing club cricket. Eventually, you qualify on residency, and we're still performing well enough that you made your debut for Canada. So you became a dual international. You make your Canadian debut in 2005, in the summer of 2005. That was the summer of the ICC Trophy tournament in Ireland. So you were an instrumental figure in helping Canada qualify for another World Cup, the 2007 World Cup that wound up being played in the West Indies. Take us through that experience. The fact that at one point, I'm sure you thought your international career was over and you were transitioning to life in Canada. Yes, playing club cricket, but I remember you telling me your day job, you worked for the Toronto Cricket Skating and Curling Club, which for people who don't know is not primarily a cricket club. There's Olympians training for figure skating there and swimming and all sorts of other stuff and curling. Curling is in the name. So there's all sorts of stuff. You were working there as an employee of the club, and I would imagine cricket, playing for Canada, was not really on your mind. So how did it come about then once you qualified? Take us through that process of who approached you or how the conversations went, and to figure out whether or not you were still interested in going on international tour again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surely, like, to be honest, like, in my playing career, I was on the downhill, because the North American life, it's not easy to practice regularly. When I'm back home, we were practicing 5-6 days a week with 4-5 hours sometimes a minimum a day. And then I came to Canada, and they are proudly said that we are practicing 2 days a week, like 2 hours a day. I was like, it was not basically nothing to me, comparing where I came from, and then what do I do in other days? It was not easy to have that transition period where, and especially when you go through a winter also, the motivational level also pretty down to get into a run outside, or going even outside to, like, to find a gym and do work. So but then again, like, the playing for Centurion was my number one thing, because I was given that responsibility. They gave me the captaincy as well in the next 2002 season, and we were winning basically every year the main tournaments, and I really enjoyed that time period in 2001 to 2005, the time that I played for Centurions, won many tournaments, many trophies for the club, but never expected to go and play international cricket again. So when 2005 qualifier came in, and I think Ashish Bagai was still playing as a youngster at that time, and for some reason he couldn't make it to that 2005 qualifier, and so then the board turned to me and said, like, they need the wicketkeeper, and they need my experience also in that tournament. And I would say that more than from runs and wickets, or runs and victims, my contribution more from my experience, and I was able to help the whole team, and won few games, just enough to qualify. Yeah, that's how I got in, and then just continued to play another year for Canada. I was captaining the Intercontinental Cup as well, 4-day game. And then having, I mean, associate cricket, as you know, there was no money that you can take home to take care of your family from cricket. so you will have to work. So I was not managing well that part. So I thought that I just need to continue my work, and if there's anything on the side, if I had to play, I will play. But main focus was to work and bring what you need home, like to take care of the family. So that's the day I decided that even I need to stop playing international cricket at least.
And for context, for people who may not be aware or just may not remember, talk about being away from home and trying to balance work and cricketer as an amateur. So that tour, the ICC Trophy Tour that was in Ireland in 2005, you guys left in mid-June to play some warm-up games in England. And then the last match was not until July 11th. So, or at least for Canada anyway, the last match that you played was July 11th. So that would have been close to a month-long tour where you're having to forego paychecks. This is the pre-professional era in Canada. And it's a lot different to, I think, what people expect or take for granted in a lot of the top tier associate countries who are part of Cricket World Cup League 2, whether that's Scotland, Canada, USA, excuse me, not Canada, whether that's Scotland, Nepal, USA, Oman, Netherlands, who are part of the Super League, but still that makes them a top tier associate as well. Namibia, you don't have that. So in terms of what exists now versus what was existing as a player then, what are the biggest differences that you can pinpoint between what you observe and experience when you're coaching players now compared to what you had to deal with as a player?
Yeah, I mean, the associate world is always very challenging because, I mean, now actually, nowadays you have actually a set calendar for to see. I mean, it's not only qualifiers or division games. There are enough cricket happening, at least for the top 7 countries. But those days is very hard. Like you had once a year you have a tournament, and then it's a must-win tournament. You have to get through, and it's not easy. And especially mental side of the players was like there are players. I mean, I was fortunate that even though that 1 month period that I was outside, and so few of the tours that I went, I was able to keep my job when I came back. But there are many players at that time I have seen. They basically had to leave the job because nobody knows about the cricket, and you put leave for more than a couple of weeks, more than you are supposed to have leave. You are basically out of the job, and then when you come back, you have to find another job. So life is not easy in North America, and I'm sure still some of the US players going through this thing, even though there's a lot of cricket happening and things are getting better, but still there's a lot of uncertainty for any cricketer in North America. And you know that this game is all about, like, you get all these things when you are performing, and when you're not performing, when you have a bad patch, you lose a lot. So but right now I think slowly the associate cricket has developed into a setup where the funds are coming through, and the players are, most of the teams players are they need to be contracted, because you have to practice, like 365 days. You have to do everything like properly, like a full member country player, or even though you don't get that much of money. But it's been, the security has been given now, at least, like for the most of the countries where they play this as your first job. You train and you play, and at least you make some money for the month. So that's been the biggest change that I see from those days to now.
You take on your first gig as a coach in the associate world just after the 2007 World Cup that Canada played, and you said you had given up on trying to balance work and playing, but then a coaching opportunity comes along, which pays a hell of a lot better than playing cricket does. So you become coach of Canada, knowing full well what the challenges are like trying to coach players in Canada because you were one yourself. What was the biggest challenge and biggest thing that I guess you needed to convince yourself in terms of why coaching Canada and coaching an associate cricket in general was worthwhile in spite of all the challenges that are there for an associate player or an associate coach?
When I've been offered for this job by that time President Ben Senek from Cricket Canada, I sat down with my wife, and it was a big decision for me to take, because I was, like you said before, I was working for Toronto Cricket and Skating Club, and it was a very good job. And basically it's a job that you can do it until you retire, and very stable working environment. So had to take a bit of risk if I had to come out from there and take another job. So I signed for 2 years. I mean, the job I got the offer from the Cricket Canada was for 2 years. So I was waving, like, the thing where is it worth to get out and have take that risk for 2 years, or whether I shouldn't take it and stay and work, like, for Toronto Club. But then again, like, I came up with saying that, I mean, thinking that the cricket is my passion, and if I can build my career as a coach, I would be the most luckiest person. So I just took that opportunity. So I left Toronto Cricket Club, and the biggest challenge that I have was like from 2007 World Cup in Caribbean. After that World Cup, about 80% of the players, I would say 70-80% of the players was retired, and the challenge that the Cricket Canada had was to how you're going to qualify again in 2009 to 2011 qualifier. I mean, the World Cup, you're going to basically build a brand new team. So that was a challenge that actually the then president gave me, and he said, just like, do what you need to do. We need to qualify in 2009. So I had 2 years, and there are a lot of, again, like I do wherever I go at the initial days, like, did a lot of experiments and came up with some good plans.
And those plans were good enough to help Canada qualify and get your contract extended. So you qualify for the World Cup in South Africa in 2009 to get to India and the rest of the subcontinent in 2011. And you lead the team to the World Cup. And then you leave, take a bit of a break. Then the Nepal job comes up. And we've talked before about the differences in terms of what the cricket culture is like in Canada versus Nepal. What appealed most to you prior to coming to Nepal to convince you that that was going to be a good opportunity for you?
It's always been challenging because that time also I was fully settled down in Canada, and leaving the family and going into another country. It was not easy, because I don't want my family to move anywhere, because kids are started going school, wife started working, so they are settled down, and it was not easy that they can travel with me anywhere. So when the president of Cricket Association of Nepal at that time, Mr. Vinay Raj Pandey, offered me during the World Cup, actually in 2011 World Cup, when we were in India, I got an email from him, and he asked me whether I'm interested to come to Nepal. And then I actually said, okay, I'll come for 6 months, because there was a Asian qualifier, T20 qualifier, and then there was a T20 World Cup qualifier in Dubai, um, within the 6 months, for 6 months. So I said, okay, I'll try and see whether I can, be there for 6 months. That's how we start. That's how everything started. And I don't want to be longer, but I thought, okay, just 6 months, I'll do it and come back. And that's not what basically didn't it happened. It's just I got stuck there for 5 years.
Today's episode of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, presented by Dream Cricket, is also sponsored by Musa Cricket Stadium, the first and original turf wicket facility in the state of Texas, and now one of the premier venues for the minor league cricket T20 franchise tournament. Located at 5515 McKeever Road in Pearland, 5 miles off the Bailey Road exit from State Route 288 and a half hour south of downtown Houston, Musa Cricket Stadium includes fully enclosed locker rooms and change rooms plus shower facilities after a day's play, as well as outdoor nets for all your training needs. For more information, call 713-534-2195. That's Musa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas.
So take us through it. How did 6 months turn into 5 years? Was it a continually incremental thing that you had to this kind of tug of war back and forth with your family and your personal life considerations trying to tug you back to Canada versus the on-field accomplishments and continued progression of the players on field in Nepal? Or did they offer you a longer term commitment to get you to stay and achieve the things that you eventually wound up doing?
Yeah, and I'm sure the Cricket Association of Nepal also didn't have long-term plans with me. They won't be, Nepal never been a good T20 side. They were always good on the 50 overs. And first time, we were able to get through the Asian qualifier here, played in Nepal. And that was a tough tournament. We had to beat one of the top teams. So we beat UAE in that time, to qualify. And then in about 4 months' time, we had the main qualifier in Dubai, and then that's the first time that Nepal participated in that level, especially in the T20 version. And there were 6 teams going to the World Cup, and Nepal finished on the 7th place, and never expected to be in that place. So there was a lot of hype came up for Nepal cricket for T20, and the players started playing a bit of different cricket, aggressive cricket. I just wanted to be for them to be like that because especially because of T20. And then the Cricket Association offered me for 2 years, 2-year contract. And again, I just had to make some tough decisions. And my wife's family actually moved to Canada, and then they got a bit settled down there with a bigger family. So because of that, actually, I was able to stay a bit longer outside and do my work. So everything actually worked out pretty well. So it just started like that and kept going.
The moment that Sharad Visakar hits the winning 6 in the UAE to get Nepal to the first World Cup that was going to be in Bangladesh a few months later. Take us through that moment and what you were experiencing from the bench.
So that's also to a very different scenario where so once we finished on the 7th, 2012, we finished at the 7th spot and came back, and we were so adamant to we knew that the next qualifier coming in on the 2013. So we had good preparation. We got ready for that and did a lot of hard work back home. And there are many memorable time periods we went through in that qualifier. The first was we know that for us to get into the top 4 in the group to go to the second round, we had to beat one of the top teams. We had teams like Scotland, if I'm not mistaken, Scotland, and Afghanistan in our group, and Kenya, PNG. There are some top teams. Nepal was new to that level, and then one game against Kenya. Kenya actually batted first and smashed us, and they got 182. And Nepal never had scored that many runs in a T20. So, but the hard work that we did, as a group, we believe that we can push one main game, so that we can go to the next round. And in that game, we were chasing, and and the last over came to 18 runs to get in to win. Sarat was batting, and he in the Dubai Cricket Academy, Global Academy, and Sarat hit first 3 balls. He hits 3 sixes. That's where, like we got the we got the confidence, and Sarat got the confidence as well. So we won that game, and then we know that we were in the top. We actually finished third place, so that we had 2 chances to qualify in the second round. And then we played against Hong Kong in the first game, and we chased down again. Sarat came into place, and last over we had 12 to get, if I'm not mistaken, around 12 runs to win. And Sarat first ball he hit a 6, second ball hit a 4, and we got through the line, and that's where everything happened. Going into the World Cup.
But what was it like for you as coach watching that, experiencing the emotions, obviously different from what the players are experiencing? Take us through that sequence for you. I guess the Kenya sequence, like you said, Raket Patel scored a century in that game, and then it was Sharad finished it 23 not out of 6 balls, including those 3 sixes. But Paras Kadka had an unbeaten half century as well. Subhash Kakkaril scored a 54 at the top of the chase to get the chase going in the right direction. So there were a couple heroes obviously who emerged, but yeah, if you take us through the 3 sixes that he hit against Kenya, and then that final over against Hong Kong, for you as a coach watching it, what are the emotions that are going through your mind as these moments are happening?
One of the most enjoyable factor for me as a coach was like I just put these guys to believe that they can do lots of things, and then with the talent that they have, and even in training that we had in Kathmandu, there are many times that we set up a target for 180, 160, 170, and we chase down, and we never scored that. Like in our batting group never was even the 160 targets, we never able to chase down in even with our own bowling. We were short of 5 runs, we were short of 2 runs, like every time that when I put up a match scenario. But what happened was actually the guys start believing that 2 runs there, 5 runs there is not a big difference. We would have got in that 1 over here, 1 over there. We would have that batting well in somewhere in the middle would have been the difference for that five runs difference. So that the whole team had got that belief, and one thing that I was able to work on in that group was to have that belief that we belongs in that level. It's just that, like we this T20 cricket or the international cricket is all about, like you keep doing the right things to the end, believing that that you can cross the line at the end. And I'm for me as a coach, I'm very fortunate, I would say, and personally satisfied, like to see how that group was growing. And I mean, I don't have to mention too much about the characters like Paras and Ganendra and Shakti, Gaushan, Basant. There's Subhash Kakkaril. Like there's basically the whole team. They everything that I've been asked to do for them to do, they were just training hard. They were doing the right thing, and they believe that they can do this. So that's the main reason that we were able to cross some hard lines. And as a coach, like it's very enjoyable.
You have those experiences, and you go to the World Cup, and one of the, I guess, memorable moments of the World Cup is when Shakti Gauchan went on his wicket-taking spree in the World Cup in that Hong Kong game when you bowled him out for 69. Has that incredible sequence where he just rips through the middle order and starts running off like a crazy man celebrating. What do you remember most about the World Cup experience itself that was different or more gratifying than qualifying for the World Cup?
There are a couple of things. That one thing is that before the World Cup, we went to Dubai. Actually, all 4 associate countries who got selected, we had a camp in the Global Academy, and one day when we were training, one of the ICC official came to my training and asked me that are you sure this team will compete in the World Cup, because these all games are showed in TV, and it's 3 hours, 3.5 hours TV time. You don't want to finish a game in 1 hour or 2 hours, lose badly. And also the Afghanistan, they were supporting the Afghanistan team to go through in our group. So they don't want for us to lose badly to other teams and put other teams net run rates high. uh, so I just answered with the one line. I said, you will be surprised how these guys are going to do. That's all I answered to them. And that's one challenge that it was in my mind. And the other was that we as a Nepal, as a Asian country, we play Afghanistan many times because of the Asian tournaments, and Nepal always come close and lose games to Afghanistan. And there was my personal goal was I just want to beat one time at least before I leave Nepal. I just want to beat Afghanistan. um, and one of the things that we as a playing group was remembered was when Afghanistan came to Nepal one time. That time Nabi was the captain, and there was some program happened outside Kathmandu, and Nabi was interviewed in that program, and one kid asked a question from Nabi that will ever Nepal beat Afghanistan? And the Nabi's answer was that not in my lifetime. So I think the playing group was hit by those little things, and so we were so determined, to do well. And I think we prepared pretty well, and Afghanistan was if you ask my memories in the World Cup, Afghanistan is one of the best quality game that we have played. Me as a head coach, the team, no extras, no balls, no wides, not even buys or leg buys in that game. Bowled very well, and as you know, the batting was not the best. Batting was never been a strength of Nepal at that time, but we put enough runs on the board to give a game, and then bowled perfectly and won that game. And of course, the characters characters like Shakti Gauchan, or whether you call it Paras, anything on there around him, around Paras, he didn't let anybody catch the ball. He was even running from mid-off to mid-on and taking the catches, because we were so adamant to win that game. We don't want the leaders in that team made sure that they don't want to do any mistakes. They don't want to leave any regrets on that day. So played very hard cricket and quality cricket, and beat a top Afghanistan team, and ended up in tying the points with Bangladesh. And just because that Afghanistan played a poor cricket against Bangladesh in that tournament, Bangladesh had better net run rate than us. So that was my answer for the ICC official who questioned me. Yeah, so that was a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a great time for Nepal cricket in that 2014 era. You left not long after, though, and had some time away before taking the U.S. job. Now, U.S., in terms of the cricket culture, is not altogether different from Canadian cricket culture. So you would have been aware of some of the challenges involved in terms of the politics and just the cultural dynamics. What was the thing that drew you most to the job, in spite of some of the challenges that there are?
Yeah, I was fully aware about the USA team, because that we were Nepal was opponents for many tournaments against USA, and so I knew that team, but I until I go into US setup, I didn't know that much history inside. But one good confidence that I had was like, since that ICC was basically controlling that time, so I had the full backup, and they once I was hired and they asked me my plans, and they were basically blindly like supported my plans. And like I always do wherever I go to a new place, I don't want to shuffle too many things. I want to see first whatever it's there, and move forward and see whether we can move forward with the current setups. I did the same, and actually, we won the Division 4 in Los Angeles, first time. But even though I knew that there are lots of things to be changed, but you cannot do that as soon as you go into a new place. So I gave time. But for your question, like, coming back to USA, it was kind of a very satisfactory for me, because I'm coming back to home. Actually, I'm actually was given permission to operate from my home, so I stay in home, and I come back to US and do my work, and then go back again after a few days home. So that was like really helped me to spend time with my family. So that's one of the main reason that I took that job. But I knew that I need to do lots of changes um, to the system if USA wants to become an ODI country. So yeah, it was a very challenging path, and totally different from what I had in Nepal.
It wasn't all smooth sailing. Like you said, there were a lot of challenges. You win that first tournament in 2016, but then you go to Uganda in 2017 and you almost wind up getting relegated. There are a lot of things that happened on the tour. The Singapore match was, I thought, a huge missed opportunity. At one point, I remember even at the innings break, you were talking about, oh, we were going to shoot for a 300 plus score. And even though we got bowled out early, we still got plenty of runs on the board, but it's a flat wicket. Stephen Taylor in that game, I thought Stephen Taylor was going to score a double hundred in that game. The way he started off batting, the wicket was so flat, and he was batting so well. And you guys went from looking like posting 350, 360 to getting bowled out, and I think the 44th over. And then Singapore chased it because it was a very flat wicket. As a consequence of that, and then the Canada loss very nearly come close to relegation. But you rallied back on the final day against Uganda with a very dramatic victory in the waning overs to avoid relegation, which would have been catastrophic. But still, the events of that tour and not being able to get promoted, it exposed some flaws in terms of the team setup. What did you see over the course of that tour that woke you up to the fact that you needed to make a bunch of changes, not least to do with the captaincy and going from Stephen Taylor to Ibrahim Khalil, and a whole lot of other changes as well?
Yeah, I think, like, I mean, like I said, like, even though we won the Division 4 in Los Angeles earlier year, in 2016, I was not. I know that these things are not the right things to do moving forward. But after winning a tournament, I don't want to jump in and do changes, and so I let it happen, and I thought that I'm going to work hard with the current system, and see whether I can, with the staying in that system, and correcting it, or putting into the right direction. That's what my initial thoughts. And we went to Uganda, and nothing went really our way. Even though it was a very good team, it just showed that, like, if you're not playing as one group, one unit, things can go wrong any day. So and after that tournament, I thought that was my opportunity to turn around things, and I was so clear what I want to do, and took few risk, like, change the captaincy, like, some of the players who were playing there for a while, and they thought that they never can be touched because of some, the performance their past performance and history. It was not easy. It was not easy decisions, but I think one by one we clear things, and put the right blocks in place. And I think that's it was not just a like a 1 or 2 months work. It's, I think, every tour, like, if you're talking about the regional qualifiers, T20 qualifiers, or Super 50 tournaments that we had, two Super 50 tournaments we played, and then tour to Oman that we had. All these tournaments were used to build one block at a time, and clean up all the unnecessary things, and got everything into the right direction.
Part of that process, you talked about building blocks. Part of that process in building things up, there was also some tearing down at points too. So in North Carolina, leading up to the Division 3 revisit tour in Oman, following up the Division 3 in Uganda. So the team goes to North Carolina. They have the T20 World Cup qualifier. They go 5-1 in that. There was the super over loss to Canada, and then the very dramatic win over Canada a few days later, where Stephen Taylor hits 22 off the final over. But I think one of the stories hidden from the public that the public might not be aware of, but it's kind of a poorly kept secret within the U.S. cricket fraternity in terms of the players in the national team group, that win over Canada, there are not really too many celebrations. And either that night or the next day, there was a team meeting where, I say team meeting, 7 players in the squad called a meeting with you. And basically it looked like there was going to be a mutiny, where they were revolting against Ibrahim Khalil as captain, and they made it abundantly clear they did not want to play under him as captain anymore. And that was a huge turning point in U.S. cricket and the course of the journey over the next couple months. Now, you had publicly pledged your backing to Ibrahim Khalil prior to that on other occasions, but the fact that there were a couple of factors. He was in poor form. His batting form was not good. Separate to that, the fact that you had basically the majority of the squad coming to you personally to say, we're not playing under this guy. Even if we just won this game, we don't want to play under him going forward. Did you feel that if you backed Khalil, you were risking the team revolting against you as well? Or was there some other factor besides his own form that led you to ultimately take the decision to say, we have to remove him as captain and take him out of the squad?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I haven't talked in public about this. I'm glad you asked about this. Like, I mean, to be honest, like, I just had to say some things about Ibrahim. Like, he's one of the best captains that I've gone through. I mean, of course, Paras is up there with anyone in associate cricket, but the biggest issues that I had at the beginning of USA, like, I mean, for you to do to win these do or die tournaments, where like in 5 games you had to qualify, you had to come be in top 2, in associate cricket, you have to have a good captain, especially the tactical side. I mean, I can say Ibrahim is up there with anybody. He's top captain. He knows what to do, the bowling changes to field settings to all these little game plans that we talked about. He's a guy who will go and execute that perfectly on the field. So once I saw him, I thought that this is the guy who can, drive this team to the next level. But the USA cricket is totally different from whether it's South Asia or even in like even in other test playing nations. Like the North American system is like where we have to respect everybody, whether they are top players or whether they are average players or whether they are not doing what we wanted to do. There always has to be a balance how you handle them, and it's all about how you get the best out of each individual differently. So one part Ibrahim was lacking was, like, that the relationship that he with the other main players in that group. And he always had Ibrahim always had my backing. I mean, I was blindly supporting him because I thought that his captaincy can take into the next level. And but I was actually working with him closely to develop the other side of it, where how to build this relationship with these main players, and how to keep them happy, and the respect to each other and all this stuff. Like I was working very close to him, and then with all these things, like in North Carolina, when this group of players, and especially the main guys, came to me and complained that some of these things has to change. It's not that me and the ICC officials there took just a one time like straight decision. Is just that we put back to all these things to Ibrahim, and we were trying to correct things. And because it was a risk, whatever we do, it's going to be a risk. Like, because 2 months time, we build all this team into the, and you have another do or die tournament in Namibia, so we cannot have big changes. But some of the things that we couldn't bring it to the same table with the same in the group. So then I had to weigh out and see what's going to work to the future. So in that one night, it was not an easy decision to take, but in that one night we took the decision saying that we need to change the captain, and the captain needs to be some guy who can build that relationships and keep these guys together. And then we did that change right there with in that tournament. But that also wasn't planned. Wasn't really happened in that overnight. Actually, the last game that actually beginning of the tournament, I proposed Ibrahim also, like, let's give Surab a captaincy last game just to keep him ready as well moving forward. So that just happened before that, and then right away we gave it to Surab to take over in the final game of that tournament, and he has to continue from there.
Were you blindsided by all these players coming to you in the manner that they did, or did you see things kind of bubbling under the surface leading up to that moment?
These things are not new to me. I mean, in my earlier jobs also, I have seen players coming against the captain and the leadership, or anything regarding about, like, the board or anything. But I will only support if the things are, I mean, if the complaints or the things that they bring up is if I see that these things are right, I support them. If I see that these things are not right, I will not support them, regardless of if you have everybody on the other side. But that night, the things that that playing group brought it in. I mean, those are very clear things where I had to accept those things because they had some valid points.
Are you able to discuss what those valid points were for people who are not aware?
I mean, the main points are, like, if I had to say one or two things, main points are the respect to individuals. I mean, respect can be described in different ways, but I feel that to be fair with Ibrahim also, like, I mean, I don't think that he meant anything wrong to anyone. He was just doing his job. But the culture that we have in North America, people expect more, like, when it comes to respect and other things. So so some of the things happening on the field, off the field, the players were not happy. I mean, I also, as a coach, I strongly believe that I need to keep every player happy, but not doing anything wrong things, but if they're giving 100% on the field, I want them to be satisfied with things that we off the field. Like, I'm a person who always fight with every board that I've been worked with for the financial. Like, I would like to get the players get more money, more support, just to, like, to keep them working hard, nothing else. Like, it's just that if they're giving 200% full time, I also would like to give them back something for them to be happy for their work. So that's actually my way of handling players. And when we lost us respect here and there, and when you don't have that relationships, I don't think that even my theories can work in those atmosphere. So nothing was easy, and I still feel bad for Ibrahim because he would have contributed lot to USA cricket, even as a captain or even outside of the field, like in the administration side. He's very, very knowledgeable about the game, but those decisions were just to do the right thing at that time, and to move forward the USA cricket in the right direction.
And it wasn't just taking him out of the captaincy; he was gone from the squad altogether. So you guys made a clean break. Then that next tour, in terms of the ICC tour, you went to Oman. So in between Khalil being Axis captain, you went to the Super 50 tournament, and that's where Aaron Jones and Hayden Walsh were more or less discovered. You knew about Hayden Walsh a little bit before then, but Aaron Jones was discovered. And then those two guys get brought into the team. Just the transition from North Carolina to Oman, would you say it was a clean break, or was there and the team immediately, as soon as Khalil was gone, all of a sudden the players started playing with more freedom and they were more relaxed and more comfortable, and that helped bring out some of the performances that the teams produced in Oman? Or was there something else along the way that helped that transition happen in order to get the results out of them that they did?
It worked really into a positive way, because once the team administration supported this cause, and the players actually, like they say 7-8 players, basically the whole main team, like main players, they were obligated also to give it back, because we gave them what we want, what they want. They automatically, there's a system created, like they're playing hard cricket, they're giving everything to the team, and things basically settled down in the team, and started working the way we want. I would say that was the time, actually, even though in the Ibrahim's time period, we were slowly changing a lot of even the cultural stuff, team rules, and that bonding. The things actually automatically clicked as soon as Ibrahim left. Not because that I as a coach, I don't think that he has a lot wrongdoings to contribute to this, but actually because of the 7-8 players who got together, and they actually putting extra effort to get the job done, basically. So that really worked towards the positive side of the team.
And also the addition also is significant of Aaron Jones, Hayden Walsh Jr. They were hugely influential in their performances in Oman, and then also Namibia, and then Kareem Agor, who was the next player beyond that emerged, helping USA and Namibia. So that final tour, you've come all that way. You got one more hurdle to get to ODI status. The game against Namibia in particular is the most memorable game from that tour. It goes down to the final over, and USA wins it with the last wicket run out, Sarvnet Javalkar. Everything that had been building up to that over the course of the 2.5-3 years you'd been in the role to that point to get to ODI status. Again, take us through, just like I asked you before about Nepal, essentially qualifying for ODI status, if there is a lack of a better way of putting it, to get that victory over Namibia, and then steamrolling Papua New Guinea, and then clinching it with the win over Hong Kong, even though it was a pretty clear-cut win over Hong Kong. But just seeing once the final wicket was taken, looking over to the dugout and seeing the way you guys reacted, just take us through the emotions of that event and the peak of that moment happening after the hard work that you'd put in for the 2.5 years prior, and what it meant to you.
Like one of the main things that was in my mind was like coming from Nepal also, and taking the USA job, seeing how Nepal, the culture and the hungry to win games, the way that they play as a team at that time. I really wanted USA to be in that level, and visiting the Olympic Center in Colorado for a couple of times, like looking at these other sports, how they do things. When you're entering, there are like some video shows there, and you have goosebumps. Like even though I was not a USA citizen, but it's so much pride in that when you enter that arena, and the way that they treated their sports and the country, and I just thought, like how come the cricket can be different from there? Like it's a USA national team, and why can't we have this? And that's one of the things I've been working very hard, like to bring that into USA cricket. We had a lot of little things that we put in place, like is only English on speaking. The like we Any other sport in USA, doesn't matter what level that they are, their pride when you go as a USA team. And I wanted that USA cricket team also to bring that atmosphere. So even though there is like Caribbean, Asian, or any other ethnic, like we play together, but that's a USA team. USA, we need to represent the country. So we did a lot of work behind the work, like behind the doors, to bring that culture into the team. We took them into these US Army barracks, and there are many little programs that we did to bring that up, and we were in the right track. I have to say that we were in that right track, like to any sport in USA. We were we were getting close to that atmosphere. And everything that I have done was, like, I would say I'm happy that, like it went through very well planned. Lot of credit to the people like Tom and Wade and Eric and all these guys who just blindly supported my plans. If I had to recall a few things, like there was a rumor that they're going to have a Division 3 in Oman, and nobody knows about it. And there was some funds left after the Audi Cup we played in Canada. There were some funds left, and Tom asked me, "Do you need anything to do?" I said, like, "Can we go to Oman and play a series just to get the conditions?" And it happened, and we were before going into Division 3 there, maybe the only team who had visited Oman before was USA. And we got, even though there was a team was 50%, maybe more than 50% was different, but still I got the feeling in Oman, and some of the players was able to play in those conditions. The same thing that we played in UAE for about close to about month tour, that was targeted for the T20 World Cup qualifier, just to get those conditions. I mean, one is that we are preparing for the Namibia tour, but at the same time we want to get used to the more conditions for Dubai, because we know that the World Cup qualifier is coming in Dubai. So there's a lot of good plans, and the Super 50 both tournaments actually really helped us to build the quality of the USA team. Got confidence beating some good teams in that Super 50. I think every year the team was improving the Super 50. Yeah, I mean, I left in an unexpected time, but when I look back, I'm very happy for those 3 years, the work that I was able to do.
Leaving unexpected and just leaving in the manner that you did, I thought it was such a sad occasion, literally just to the standpoint that USA had achieved something great, get ODI status, and then you were sent off, and there wasn't a proper thing that was done in terms of really recognizing your achievements and what your contributions, because the day you eventually left, you were in Canada. It was during the Under-19 World Cup qualifier, so I was there commentating, and you were there on one of the outfields in King City, and the men's World Cup is going on in England. It was a very just bizarre scene where you had done so many wonderful things, and yet here was this moment where you were resigned, but essentially you were forced out, and you were all alone. There was nobody there to thank you. There was nobody there to recognize you, really, which I just thought was really unfortunate way for you to go out. And I remember seeing you there and talking to you. You were very gracious enough to give me some time to speak with you that day, to interview. And you had your sunglasses on. I could see there were tears coming down your cheek. This was really devastating for you at the time. And as it should have been, the way you went out, I thought was really the way you were treated was very poor, considering everything that you had done. The way that it happened, though, the way that the board kind of really just interfered with the national team affairs in a way that shouldn't have been allowed to happen. They made it clear they wanted their own guys. Whether it didn't matter if you had lost in Namibia or you had won in Namibia, they decided we want our own guy. Doesn't matter the result. And the fact that you won made it harder. But to bring in Kieran Moore, again, not on a 3-year contract, but a 3-month contract, which then blew up in their face. But just to kind of push you aside and not have, for lack of a better way of putting it, to not have fans cheering you or to giving you a proper send-off and everything else the way that it unfolded after you had helped USA to get ODI status. And I could see firsthand how much it really cut into you. What was the thing that disappointed you most about the way and the manner and how you were pushed to the point where it was basically you were going to be pushed off the plank or you jump yourself?
I think, like, I mean, as a person, in my coaching career, I expect all this time. I mean, the higher you go, you have more chance to get fired in these coaching jobs. That's the fact. So that those things are I'm fine. But there are a lot of things that touched my heart. Was like, I wanted USA to be in the right track. I know that if I had another 6 months, 1 year, the things that I have started, I would have able to put that culture that never would have gone backwards. I miss that part. And to be honest, the other bigger thing is, like, lots of people think that when you play a tournament and you just go and play and put a good team and you can go and win and that's it. Associate cricket is not like that. It's not like full member cricket where you have a first class system. We have cricket happening. You have junior cricket. You have pathways, and who's coming in that system. If somebody is not informed, who to replace, because you have cricket in the country. Associate cricket is not like that. Or associate cricket is like no team in associate cricket has a good domestic structure. We have to go with strong decisions and finding until a country set up that structure, you need to do lots of things different way. And that's the pace that USA cricket went through at that time. And sad part is that many people I can't even say many people, except for that playing group. I don't think no one will ever know the things that we went through in that period. Maybe you may be one of the person who witnessed maybe from outside that group the most.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. I mean, it's a very unique experience in associate cricket, especially in a country like the USA, where in a lot of places, with the exception of maybe North Carolina, and 2,000, 3,000 people show up. Most of the special experiences you have, you're not experience your greatest successes with thousands of fans cheering you on. They're happening in very anonymous circumstances and anonymous places. And winning against Hong Kong is a perfect example of that. The moment that USA achieved ODI status, there weren't thousands of fans cheering you on. It was a very kind of anonymous day in Windhoek, where outside of the fact that Eric Parthen and Wade Edwards were there, outside of the playing squad, there was nobody there to cheer you on or celebrate. Yeah, you might be getting WhatsApp messages and text messages and Facebook notes of thanks and other DMs, whatever, but that doesn't give you the same sense of fulfillment in a lot of ways that viscerally you get by experiencing it in front of fans. And I just think, like you said, it's a great point. Unless you were one of the players or part of the coaching staff, it's really hard to appreciate all the challenges and things that went on.
Yeah, and to add into that is just like, some of the creative things that we do. Like, I mean, we never had money to bring a squad to one place too many times. Like, I had to go around, or we have programs individually. So three guys in New Jersey, two guys in New York, or three, four guys in California, Los Angeles, like 2, 3 guys in Houston. Like we have been creative many ways to get the job done, and then we fought to get spots in the CPL, the GT20 Canada, even some other guys to go and play cricket in Sri Lanka, wherever it is. Like we were just being creative to get things rolling to build up that team. And so sometimes when you're doing these things, you don't know sometimes who's your best players also, because when it comes to the next level, some perform and some don't, even though you are talented. And you must have witnessed, like where we started in 2016. I don't think except for 1 or 2 players didn't survive in the 2019 when I left. It's a totally different team. So we were basically building the blocks, and but it's enjoyable as a coach. And if you talk about my career, I think it's a fantastic experience.
So now we come to Nepal again. You're back with Nepal. The T20 World Cup qualifier is coming up. And I would say you guys are in the group of death. It's not just me who's saying that. There's quite a lot of other people. The way the tournament format is shaken out, you've got a much, much tougher group than the other half of the draw. You're in there with Oman, Canada, and the Philippines. So I think everybody's expecting the 3 top teams in that group to really beat up on the Philippines. No disrespect to the Philippines, but it means one really, really good team out of Nepal, Canada, or Oman is going to be left out, not just the World Cup. They won't even get to the semifinals to have a chance to have that one shootout at the World Cup. We know you've already beaten Oman in the build-up to the qualifier as part of the quad series, but you take on a Canada team that you're very familiar with, a lot of the players, and Nepal, who's had a number of changes recently. What do you think your chances are in this event, and what's it going to take to get Nepal back to the World Cup for the first time since 2014?
So far, I'm confident how the preparation came up, and even though I would have preferred a bit more longer time with this team, with the short period that I had, almost now. I haven't come. Yeah, it's about 6 weeks now with this team. I think shape up pretty well, and I'm very surprised of some of the young talents have come through, and the batting, especially batting department. When I left in 2016, and what I see now is totally different. They are aggressive batting unit and some very good talent. So the full confidence is there, and even though this quadrangular that we played, we won 1 and lost 2, but all 3 games, I think, even though I really like to win games, but we were exposed, and we were exposed in a way that we were maintain our confidence, and we know that if we do few little things right in coming games, we can beat any good team. So full confidence that at the moment, if you ask me, the Nepal is in the right direction to go over this hurdle.
And then beyond the World Cup, for people who are not aware, because some of these things haven't been publicized too well, there's an awful lot of cricket coming up for Nepal. They've got the tour to UAE. They've got a tour coming up around May or June to the USA as part of Cricket World Cup League 2. And then also they're going to be touring Scotland later in the summer as well for Cricket World Cup League 2 matches. At the moment, because of the pandemic, Nepal has played the fewest matches out of any team on the 7-team table. They've only played 8 matches compared to Oman, who has played 23. So even though Nepal, just by raw numbers, is second to last on 8 points, that's partly a function of the fact that they've played the fewest matches out of anybody. So they've got an awful lot of matches to make up, an awful lot of opportunities to make up points. So with all the cricket that's on tap coming up this summer, what excites you the most about the opportunities this team has to improve their position in the table?
Of course, we had to win these ODI games to climb in that table. I'm not worried about the talent that we have. I'm not worried about the ability that we have in this team. It's just that you need a professional system around this team, and a proper training, proper planning, and also a good structure with, like, the trainers, the physios, all these little things that we can build around into a high performance environment that will give results with this Nepal team. So the plans are already in place, and things are slowly happening, and Cricket Association is very helpful for me, like, to getting these little things done. Of course, like, any time that when you do bit of changes, you get challenges. uh, you get opposition here and there, within and outside as well. This is a familiar path for me. I mean, the challenges are there, and I'm sure that I'm confident that we are moving on the right direction to do well in T20, to do well in 50 over cricket.
Coming back to the job to begin with, you knew what you were getting into. You knew that a lot of the challenges, again, on and off the field, and especially the political challenges that are there with cricket in Nepal, knowing full well what you experienced the first time around. What assurances did you get from board members prior to accepting the job that gave you the confidence that you will be able to do the things you want to achieve without interference, and be able to just get the players you want and to put them in the best position to perform?
I did my homework also before accepting this job. And I think the Cricket Association is in one of the best places, which I have seen them in the last 10 12 years. And also, like, the cricket manager, the general manager, and the staff, like, I have gone through my plans with them, and they are very happy, and they are very positive of moving forward with the plans. And then some of the challenges that I have within the team also, I think, to be honest, I always have soft corner for the players when it comes to the small matters. I want to see the players being treated well. I want to see the players being paid well and taken care of, like, well, in every angle. And I will not compromise anything for that part. But at the same time, I want to see the players who plays hard and give their heart and soul to the team and the national team and the national setup. So all these angles I had to work differently, and I have made my plans how I'm going to get through this, like, different lines into one line. And the support is there from everybody, and that's I think the strength that I have at the moment with Cricket Association of Nepal and Nepal cricket overall.
I think everybody's hoping, as an associate neutral, whether or not they're a fan of Nepal, seeing the players that Nepal has in the world at their disposal, Sandy Blemachane, and some of the newer up-and-coming faces, Dipendra Singh Ari, if he plays the way he did in the quad series, like in the qualifier, then he would be one of the most exciting faces to watch in the World Cup itself. And there's so many other players like that who I think will catch the eye in the Nepal squad. If for the few people who may not have been paying attention to Nepal, there are some of those people out there. They do exist, but they are a team to watch for sure in the qualifier and beyond. All right, favorite 11 time with Pubudu Dassanayake. 11 questions, cricket and non-cricket. You ready to rock and roll?
Yep. Shoot me.
All right. Your favorite roommate on any cricket tour?
I would say Asanka Gurusinghe in my playing days.
Why is he your favorite roommate?
I think he was much senior to me, and one of the guys who have guided me pretty well in my cricketing career.
I try to tailor this to make it somewhat Nepal specific. Your favorite type of momo?
I'm a vegetarian now, so only no option other than the vegetarian momo.
Vegetarian momo. And how many vegetarian momos can you down in one sitting?
Not many, not many. And I know that the way you eat momo, like you had to put that in one piece to your mouth, and I'm struggling for that. But I'm trying hard.
Your favorite thing to do to pass the time on a 12 or 14-hour flight from Canada to get to Nepal?
Watching movies.
Your favorite cricket ground experience anywhere in the world?
I would say my favorite will be Pokhara ground in Nepal. Had few good memories, and one of the beautiful grounds that I've seen in the world.
And hopefully, sooner than later, it'll become an international ground. They do play domestic events there, but hasn't yet played international cricket. But for people who haven't seen, go Google Pokhara, and you'll be stunned at the pictures you can see of the Himalayas behind the cricket ground. Your favorite cricketer of all time?
The favorite cricketer, there's few. But if you ask me at the moment, Mahela Jayawardene, I mean, he's my junior, but I admired him as a teammate and as a player who have achieved a lot to Sri Lankan cricket.
Your favorite non-cricket athlete of all time?
It's a tough one. I would say Nadal, the tennis player, the physics and the way that he plays the game. I watch most of his games.
I know you're a non-alcoholic, so a drinker. What is your favorite beverage of any kind?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, tea. Anytime tea.
Anytime.
Sri Lankan tea.
Sri Lankan tea. What is there a specific flavor of Sri Lankan tea that's your go-to choice?
I mean, it's the breakfast tea, the black tea. Even here, in Oman, there's many places available Sri Lankan tea. Yeah, that's one thing that I can drink anytime.
Your favorite place to eat out on tour away from home?
Until about 2 years time now, I'm fully vegetarian. But until then, I was enjoying the Nandus. But now, actually, once you become a vegetarian, you're good with anything.
So if you were a Nando's guy, what was your go-to marinade? Were you a hot, medium, lemon and herb, mango and lime, coconut and lemon, extra hot? What was your preferred spice marinade?
Extra hot, very hot, extra hot.
Your favorite pizza topping of all time?
Pizza topping, I mean, of course, vegetarian, and sometimes like when we make, when we order, one thing that I always ask the pineapples to be there in my vegetarian pizza.
Your favorite movie of all time?
There's many. The Rocky is one of the things that I keep watching. Rocky series, the 3, 4, I don't know how many, 4, 5 movies.
Well, the original, there were 5 in the original, and then now they keep adding more and more. Then there was Rocky Balboa. Now they've got the Creed movies.
Yeah, no, I like the originals actually with Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, I mean it's a as a player and as a coach, there's many things that you go through in those movies. Yeah, I enjoyed those.
Last but not least, your favorite show to binge watch, whether that's on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, or just a DVD box set. What's your go-to when you've got time to pass, whether it's on a plane, on a tour, at home, and you've got hours to kill and you can flick that on and watch it uninterrupted?
I'm very poor on series. Like my kids are always shouting at me, how come you're not watching this and that? I said, no, I need to see a finish. When I see something, I need to see a finish then and there. Otherwise, I don't want to wait for some other day to watch the next series. Yeah, I'm very poor on series.
Do you have let me ask you this. Do you have a favorite song or a favorite artist of all time?
No, I mean, artists actually for sure, Celine Dion, the Canadian singer. There's few songs that I really love. Yeah, if you ask me, number one with me at the moment, for Celine Dion.
Pubudu Dassanayake, thank you so much for coming on the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast. Give you the final word. Anything else you want to say about your journey in cricket or anything else otherwise that you think fans should know that they might not already know about you?
No, I think you covered pretty well. Yeah, just exciting times in my journey at the moment in Oman, getting into these qualifiers, enjoying every moment. That's all I can say at the moment.
Well, hopefully the team will qualify for the World Cup so you can keep on enjoying more and more moments. Nepal head coach Pubudu Dassanayake, once again, everybody keep your eyes peeled for their progress through the T20 World Cup qualifier that runs starting February 18th in Oman. Thank you, Pubudu, once again for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Pubudu Dassanayake for coming on the podcast on the eve of Nepal's participation in the first half of the T20 World Cup qualifier. It's been split into two separate tournaments this time around. The first half of that will happen in Oman starting February 18th, and Nepal is in one half of the draw within that Oman qualifier, where they'll be taking on Canada, Oman, and Philippines in group play before potentially advancing to a semifinal winner-takes-all spot in the World Cup in Australia later this year. And the second half of that 8-team qualifier will be in Zimbabwe later this year, and USA will be participating in that version of the qualifier. I want to remind everybody, if you haven't already done so, to get the latest editions of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor FM, and plenty of other podcasting locations. That's it for this episode. I'm Peter Del Penna, reminding everybody, God bless America, and God bless American cricket.